Your time and expertise are valuable, making focus one of the most important resources to have at work. These days, professionals spend nearly half the work week on written communication, and it can be difficult to stay on task with all the emails and documents you have to get through. With Grammarly as your AI writing partner, you can stay focused and quickly get through your work with relevant real-time suggestions wherever you write. It works across 500,000 apps and websites, so it can help with everything, from brainstorming presentation ideas to sounding more confident and persuasive in emails and reports. For 15 years, Grammarly has offered best-in-class communication support and enterprise-grade security on a business model that doesn't sell your data. 93% of professionals report that Grammarly helps them get more work done. Download Grammarly for free at grammarly.com/podcast. That's GRAMMARLY.com/podcast. Professionals spend nearly half the work week on written communication, so focus is important. With Grammarly as your AI writing partner, focus and quickly get through work with relevant real-time suggestions. And it works across 500,000 apps and websites, so you can sound more confident and persuasive wherever you write. 93% of professionals report that Grammarly helps them get more work done. Download Grammarly for free at grammarly.com/podcast. That's grammarly.com/podcast.
Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boy, does it smell good.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
That's good.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, this is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Thursday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Rouse's Markets, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. Rouse's, this feels like home. Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, coming to you in 15 minutes. Talk about LSU's trip to Tuscaloosa coming up. 7:30 tip-off from Coleman Coliseum for the Tigers and the Tide. But right now, let's talk some Saints. Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints, LouisianaSports.net. Good enough to give us a little bit of time. Ross, how we doing?
Hey, buddy, doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. Good to be here with you.
It is our pleasure to have you on. All right, we're obviously in the midst of this coaching search, and there are some dominoes that are starting to fall. Earlier this week, we saw Ben Johnson be taken by the Chicago Bears. We saw Aaron Glenn decide to go to the New York Jets. What do those two decisions mean for the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, I think the Ben Johnson one, the real impact there is that like the Bears were bigger competitors for Mike McCarthy than probably anybody else. And so if New Orleans is indeed interested in Mike McCarthy, and we do expect that they'll have an interview with him sometime next week, then that ends up effectively putting the New Orleans Saints in a situation where they're running mostly uncontested for a guy like Mike McCarthy. So that opens up an option for them. The other piece is, of course, Aaron Glenn choosing the Jets means that he didn't choose New Orleans. So it means that the Saints head coaching search is still on, right? The Saints were expected to have Aaron Glenn here in New Orleans at some point. That would have been rescheduled post the storm. But, of course, with Aaron Glenn choosing New York, that meeting won't happen. And so that just keeps the New Orleans Saints kind of in the search and allows them to be able to continue on down the rest of their candidate list. I do think they still have solid candidates available, but it just means that they're kind of on to the next at this point.
How would you have classified Aaron Glenn as the Saints' favorite choice based on what you've heard and kind of what you think?
I'd probably put him as a top candidate. I don't think that any team really goes in with one number one guy. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I guess maybe it depends on the hiring cycle. But for me, like I always looked at sort of the tier one of New Orleans Saints interest being Aaron Glenn, Mike McCarthy, potentially Joe Brady. And I think Darren Rizzi's probably in that category as well. And then you kind of just go tier by tier from there. That's kind of the way that I look at it for New Orleans. So I think that Aaron Glenn is a top option off the board, but I don't think that puts New Orleans in a situation where they're not going to get a different top option in their building.
All right, I want to talk about some of these options first, and then I want to talk about the competition for those options because Jacksonville looks like an absolute mess right now, and then I'm not sure what's going on out in Las Vegas. So let's talk about McCarthy, and let's talk about a couple of the other guys that the Saints have interviewed. How do you handicap that situation? First, I guess, with the two offensive guys, Brady and McCarthy.
Yeah, I think that with Brady and McCarthy, the way that I look at them is kind of the next tier for New Orleans, or the remainder of the top tier. I think Darren Rizzi might be in there too, but that's the way that I look at those two guys. I think McCarthy is somebody that's maybe the safer choice, which isn't a bad thing, but is a safer choice. been there. He's done it before. He's been in the New Orleans Saints organization. He's won Super Bowls. He's taken teams to the playoffs. There's been all the disappointing playoff exits, but, he's done the thing, and he has an overall experienced winning head coach in the NFL. Whereas Brady, I think, is a little bit more of a risk in that he is a first-time head coach, or would be a first-time head coach if hired, but I think you need a little bit of risk. I think this New Orleans Saints team would be invigorated, and this fan base would be invigorated with a little bit of risk and not playing it so safe and being willing to go after the young offensive mind that they, like something that they did back in 2006, which worked out well for them. But I don't think that has to be the scale of success here. I think simply, is he a guy that can lead a room? Is he a guy that can put together the offense and the scheme that you want? And is he the guy that can go out there and get you the defensive scheme that you want? If the answers are yes, then let him grow into the role. So I'm a little bit more pro-Brady than I am McCarthy, but I think those two guys are probably the top options for New Orleans at this point.
We saw how quickly that the two Lions coordinators were scooped up after Detroit lost. I mean, that happened very, very quickly. Joe Brady's obviously still coaching at this point, and is it a situation where the Saints feel like they could be kind of held hostage here if the Bills win on Sunday at Arrowhead and you don't get to maybe in-person interview for some time, and then all of a sudden maybe you got some competition and some other guys get hired? I mean, what's the timeline and the time crunch look like because Brady's still coaching?
Yeah, the good news is that no matter what, if the Bills advance or they're eliminated this weekend, the Saints can interview Joe Brady next week. Same thing for Kellen Moore, same thing for Cliff Kingsbury. What they couldn't do if that coach is moving on to the Super Bowl is they couldn't officially arrive at a deal. So it would be pretty similar to what happened with Clint Kubiak last year when they were in the offensive coordinator search, to where you kind of got the story during Senior Bowl week before the Super Bowl that the Saints were going to agree with terms for employment when it came to Clint Kubiak, so it would be that, and then the official deal would be signed after the Super Bowl. But they don't have to wait to talk to them until after the Super Bowl because of the bye week between the conference championship as well as and the Super Bowl. So that's where the advantage is, where they're not really held hostage in a situation like that.
Anthony Weaver is a name we've heard, obviously the defensive coordinator with the Miami Dolphins. He's 44 years old, was a second-round pick back in his playing days, and has spent a lot of time now as a coach. What do you like about Anthony Weaver, and what kind of chances do you give him to be the next coach of the Saints?
Yeah, he's going to be the first in-person interview after Darren Rizzi, right? Because Darren Rizzi did his in-person interview already. So his interview is set for tomorrow, Anthony Weaver's is. And I like Anthony Weaver. I think he might be a year or two away from being a head coach, but this is a patient organization. If you hired him now to get ahead of it and let him grow into the role, I think that's something that you could see happening. I think that he's a good leader. He's somebody that would bring an entirely refreshed look at defense to New Orleans, which I think is very necessary and kind of maybe an underrated need for the Saints this offseason in addition to all this head coaching search. And he's somebody that players would immediately attach to as a former player himself. Brings a lot of the similar culture builder qualifications that you looked at with Aaron Glenn, but would just be, somebody that wouldn't have the organizational ties.
All right, let's talk about the competition here. Because as I mentioned, Jacksonville seems like a mess to me. They just started their coaching search and then in the middle of it fired their general manager. So now they've got to deal with that as well as the coaching search. And then you've got things out in Las Vegas that generally feel like a mess as long as there's Davis in charge. So what do you think about where the Saints stand in that hierarchy right now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, their competition changes depending upon who they're going after, right? I think that they're a little bit uncontested. They're kind of in the clear right now when it comes to Mike McCarthy. Younger guys like Anthony Weaver, Kellen Moore, those guys will probably generate more interest elsewhere and things like that. I think Joe Brady's kind of the biggest one that the Saints would probably run into some competition with. You look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, yes, just fired their general manager, but the way that I look at it is that, like, the people stepped in and arrested their bully. You know what I mean? It's not a terrible situation for them. They're being bullied by this guy, and now that guy's not there anymore. So it actually opens them up and makes them a lot more of an appealing place. They were way down the road on Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator in Tampa. So logic says that if they want another offensive guy, then getting in the running for Joe Brady would be the next logical step, although Robert Saleh and Patrick Graham are still very much in the conversation over there. So that's where I think the biggest competition is going to be, is Jacksonville for Kellen Moore, Jacksonville for Joe Brady. So for the Saints, once they get the opportunity to interview one of those guys, they need to be the first interview. If that person is their top candidate or one of their top candidates, the Saints need to do what the Jets did to them, to every other team out there, and say, no, you come here to New Orleans first, and then if you leave here, you can go and talk to the other guys, but you're coming here to New Orleans.
Would you be surprised if a new name surfaced for an interview, or do you think we've kind of got the pool?
I wouldn't be super surprised by it, if I'm being honest. I think this is an opportunity to continue to expand and open up your search now that you're moving into the next phase of in-person interviews and things like that. One name to watch out for, which wouldn't technically be a new name, but he didn't do a virtual interview, would be Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. He withdrew himself from all the head coach conversation because his team was in the playoffs and he wanted to focus on his team. I can't imagine any general manager or search committee or whatever that's looking for their next head coach looking at Cliff Kingsbury and saying, man, that really ticks me off. I don't want anything to do with that guy anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So once he becomes available for those in-person interviews and when his team is not, when that season is over in Washington, if teams are still looking for and if the Saints are still open, I wouldn't be surprised to see his name added to the list.
Wherever you find your podcast, you can find Ross Jackson Locked On Saints. Certainly you can find his written work over at louisianasports.net as well. Ross, we appreciate some time. I know you'll stay on top of it. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, buddy. Take care. Stay safe. Thanks for having me on. I'll talk to you soon.
That is Ross Jackson from louisianasports.net and Locked On Saints. I think I feel like we've kind of got our pool here. I'm going to do a little bit more reading on Anthony Weaver. That was a name, candidly. I didn't know. I can't name you every offensive and defensive coordinator in the NFL currently, and I did not know the Dolphins defensive coordinator. That was off my radar. And he's not a guy I've spent a lot of time looking at. But as you start to see some names ticked off the board and you start to realize that the Saints are not going to be talking to Joe Brady over the next couple of days, and we feel like Mike McCarthy's next week as well, you start to look at potential interviews that could happen, and Weaver's name certainly comes to the forefront there. So maybe something worth looking for. He's bounced around in his coaching time. He spent 1 year at Florida as a grad assistant, 1 year at North Texas as a linebacker coach, 1 year with the Jets as defensive line coach. Then he went to the Bills. Then he spent a couple of years at Cleveland. Then he spent 4 years at Houston. And then was with Baltimore for a year as a defensive line coach and the run game coordinator. Then he spent years as assistant head coach, and now he's with the Dolphins. Like, he's bounced around a lot. Now, that's not uncommon for head coaches, but it's a guy that's seen a lot. It's been inside a lot of different organizations, and has just now gotten the opportunity to run one side of the ball as a defensive coordinator. So it's a pretty quick rise there, from just a position coach to boom coordinator, then boom to a head coach. But maybe something worth looking at here. I still feel like Joe Brady may be the leader in the clubhouse, but what's your competition like? He mentioned that he thinks Jacksonville becomes more attractive now that they've moved on from Balky, their general manager. That's an owner that's had some weird things to say in the past and kind of a volatile situation over there, but Joe Brady's a Florida native, so maybe that's a place he'd like to go spend his time as head coach for the first time. We'll just have to see, but it's fascinating nonetheless to see how the Saints kind of stack up and where they turn coming up next. All right, let's go to Chris Blair. We'll do that when we come back. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
Professionals spend nearly half the work week on written communication, so focus is important. With Grammarly as your AI writing partner, focus and quickly get through work with relevant real-time suggestions. And it works across 500,000 apps and websites, so you can sound more confident and persuasive wherever you write. 93% of professionals report that Grammarly helps them get more work done. Download Grammarly for free at Grammarly.com/podcast. That's Grammarly.com/podcast.
With New Year's resolutions, many of us will make a vow to eat healthier, and that's a good thing. But what about our beloved pets and their nutrition? Greetings, I'm naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, and here at Meow Greens, we're on a mission to provide better nutrition for all cats because truthfully, all cat food is dead food, which is why we created Meow Greens in the first place. We bring their dead food back to life with live vitamins, minerals, probiotics, enzymes, omega oils, antioxidants, and so much more, all with a tasty formula that your cat will love. You can improve your cat's coat, digestion, and energy, and have less vet bills. Let 2025 bring a new year and a new pet. Get a Jumpstart trial bag, normally $20. Get a 100% discount with promo code MEOW. You just cover the shipping. Bring your pet's food back to life. Get your free Jumpstart trial bag. Go to meowgreens.com. Use promo code MEOW, MEOW. So good your cat will ask for it by name.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Thursday show is brought to you by Rouse's Markets, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. Looking for king cake? Rouse's is your stop. They're going to make 600,000 of them. So if you're looking for one, get on by Rouse's today. Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, good enough to give us a little bit of time on this Thursday. Chris, how are you?
Good, man. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was that's a memorable one there.
Snow day. Yeah. It's nice to get a snow day for your birthday.
I was kind of dreading it when I saw that like there's a forecast for like some winter precipitation. I was like, the streets are going to be bad. Like, this is a terrible weather day. I didn't know it was going to be 10 inches in like a winter wonderland. That was a little more than I had bargained for. So we'll take it. That's one I'll remember for a long time. But I appreciate that very much. Traveling very much back on the agenda now, and so y'all can hit the road for Tuscaloosa tomorrow. LSU got the week off. What do you think Matt McMahon's kind of focus was this week? Is they didn't have to prepare for a game on Tuesday or Wednesday?
You know, it's interesting. Coach and I got together on Monday to do his show in studio, obviously with the weather coming in. And, one of the things he and I discussed, I said, Coach, you take a look at the game against Ole Miss. It's a 2-point deficit, low-scoring game. The Arkansas game, you're down 2, but it's a low-scoring game. Even in the loss at Texas A&M, it's a 30-30 tie. And I know, when they came into the season, there was, kind of this thought that maybe they'd be able to move up and down the floor at a high pace, which you see a lot of teams doing, certainly in the SEC. But, and I asked him, I said, do you think this might be the roadmap based on where we are now for LSU to be successful, to basically play games in the mud, to try to keep them in the 60s as opposed to the 80s and 90s, which seems to be a common thing now among SEC teams. And, he said, yeah, that may be where we are right now. So my guess is, and I'm completely guessing because like everybody else, I've been stuck in the house for 3 days, is that's probably what they're trying to do. Now, I don't believe that's, hey, we're going to change the whole complexion of our team, but I think they're going to try to be that team because goodness knows the next couple of games, I mean, you're taking on teams that, they win and lose games, Hunt, scoring 90-plus, which is concerning. And since SEC play has started, LSU's not really been able to scratch that 80 and 90 threshold. So, I think they're going to work on maybe creating a new identity for this team. When you look at the 3 games that I mentioned, there were times where when LSU was able to slow it down, especially defensively, a little zone press that when they cross the timeline, there's 20 seconds, and then maybe they have to use 10 or 12 seconds on the shot clock in the half court. I thought it was much better than playing at a higher pace. So we'll wait and see. I mean, goodness knows they're going to be challenged on Saturday against Alabama, who, as I said, I mean, they win games 103-97, and they lose games, 100-97. So we'll see which way wins out. I just don't think LSU can go toe-to-toe with Alabama and say, let's go run up and down the floor.
What's that building like there in Coleman now that Alabama's kind of established itself as a top 10 basketball program year in, year out? It's
an absolute just when LSU shows up, and Alabama's obviously been the way they have since Nate Oates has been there. I mean, it's the way it's erected. It's like a big aircraft hangar. Yeah. And that's no disrespect. It's just there's a lot of metal, a little bit of concrete on the floor, and then wood on the court. Outside of that, when it gets loud, man, it is extremely loud. It is a difficult place to play. Coach Brady has said that for years, even when he was coaching. He said, when they've got it right, that's a tough place to play because it's kind of small, it's kind of intimate, the crowd's on you. And like I said, just the way the architecture is, it's just like a reverberation machine. So it's a tough place to play, and goodness knows LSU's not had a lot of success going back to Dale Brown, John Brady, you name it. It's always been a tough place for LSU to win.
No doubt about that. It's been a house of horrors for LSU from a basketball perspective. How much pressure do you feel like is on Cam Carter to shoulder the majority of this offense right now? It just feels like if he's not clicking, LSU has a hard time finding an identity.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and, that's the other thing that Coach and I talked about Monday is, he scored 27 and you win against Arkansas by 4. When he struggles and only has 13 or 16 and is not as efficient and has to take, 20, 30 shots to reach double figure scoring, and there's nobody else to help pick up that slack. That's where LSU has suffered. And, frankly, Cam's the kind of guy that wants to go out and give you a 20-plus performance. I mean, goodness knows he's done it a bunch this year. I think there's only a handful of games, if memory serves, where he's been in the single digits, and he's got 7 or 8, I think, 20-plus performance games. But, Coach has said, we got to find somebody else to help provide that scoring. I mean, he's playing well over 35 minutes a game, but you can ill afford to take him out. And that's what happened in the Ole Miss game. You had a long lull of 6+ minutes where LSU can't score a basket. In the Texas A&M game down the stretch there, I mean, it was like 43-43, and then suddenly it became a 9-point lead, and LSU again went without scoring. And I think the problem is he didn't get the ball in his hands. I mean, they came down, took some quick shots. Wasn't a whole lot of passing. So I think it's twofold. I think you certainly want to give him the opportunity to score 20 plus because he's capable of doing that every night against every team in this league. But at the same time, it's a lot of pressure for him to have to go out there and say, I got to go score 30 or we're not going to win this game. You and I talked about it when Jalen Reed went down. I mean, you're going to have to get 15 to 18 points from your front court. I mean, that's conservative. And sometimes you've been able to do that, and most times in conference play you haven't been able to do that. Victorious Miller had a tough start to SEC play after really kind of coming into his own in the non-conference as a true freshman, and now he's been sidelined by the ankle injury. How long will it take for him to again, he was just now acclimating to SEC play when he gets injured. How long is that going to take him now once he comes back off of injury? And who else are you looking for? You look down the bench. Who can you get 15, 18 points from?
Yeah, that's kind of the question. It's probably going to have to come from some shots from your backcourt. I would imagine Mike Williams and Jordan Sears are going to have to make some shots to help Cam Carter. Sears struggled from three-point range on Saturday, and that was over the course of the time where LSU struggled to score those 8 minutes where Cam Carter wasn't as involved. I feel like there's probably a better chance those two guys throw in 5 or 6 threes as opposed to asking Corey Chess to score 12 points, no?
Oh, I think you're 100% right. And, credit to Mike Williams. I want to brag on him a little bit. I mean, you look at the way this roster was put together prior to the season. I mean, it's guard heavy. And suddenly you got one of the few returning guys who I thought really started to get comfortable in SEC play down the stretch, played well for you. Suddenly he's having a hard time finding minutes. And there were games where he just didn't play. And it would be easy in this day and age for somebody to go, you know what, I'm checking out. There certainly has been a precedent set for players doing that, even at LSU, and he hasn't, and he's stuck with it. And I think we'll see more minutes, and I think you're right. I think that's what the coaching staff believes is that Mike's a pretty good 3-point shooter, and we can probably manufacture some shots with him. But one of the big concerning things for me, Hunt, and I'm sure you've watched it, analytics will show you that off the dribble threes are nowhere close to as accurate as inside-outside threes. And LSU's shooting a lot of off the dribble threes, and that's from the backcourt. They did it time and time again against Texas A&M, and frankly, Buzz Williams and the Aggies were happy to see them do it. If they hit 1 or 2, great. They're not going to do that all night long, and they didn't. And LSU has the ability that we've seen to be able to drive a guy one-on-one and get to the paint. And most of the teams in the SEC, Hunt, are going to collapse their defense. That's the style they play. They live and die by giving up 3-point shots. LSU is not taking advantage of that. I don't know if it's a decision-making issue or they just panic when they get deep into the lane, but they've got to drive and then get Jordan Sears an open 3, 10 toes to the basket, set, catch, and shoot. Same thing for Cam. Same thing for Mike. Same thing for Jai. And there's too much dribbling and then rise with a hand in their face. And the opponents will take that shot all day long.
We'll see. It's going to be a tough one for the Tigers in Tuscaloosa. That's a tough place for teams to win. Ole Miss managed to do it, but not a lot. They've done it over the last 4 or 5 years. Safe travels to Tuscaloosa. We'll talk to you next week.
You got it, Hunt.
He's Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers. Look, it's this is a bad matchup for LSU on Saturday. I'll just say that. We'll break the game down tomorrow. But you're talking about an LSU team that really lacks an offensive punch right now. And you're talking about an Alabama team that just rolls the ball out and scores 95. I mean, just in their sleep, throws up 95. Now, Ole Miss stopped them. Ole Miss, Bama shot it poorly. They slowed the game down, and they rebounded, and Ole Miss did it. Now, Chris Beard is one of the best defensive coaches in the country. So it is possible to slow Alabama down in that building, but very few do it. And so it feels like LSU's scoring somewhere in the neighborhood of 65, 68 points in SEC games, and Alabama just falls out of bed and scores 90. So you do the math on that. It's not super encouraging. So I'll try tomorrow to come up with some reasons for optimism and why LSU can keep it close. I just can't promise we'll see them on Saturday night. It's another 7:30 tip on a Saturday on the road, which I'm not super pumped about for my postgame story on LouisianaSports.net, which won't be written until like 11:30 p.m. But part of the gig. I've seen worse jobs to do, so we'll make it happen on Saturday night. All right, we got 30 minutes to go here on a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Appreciate you hanging out here with us. Fox Sports came up with a list of the top 10 college football teams since 2000. In your head, you're going, well, 2019 LSU. I'll tell you what they thought of 2019 LSU. It might surprise you. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com is that website. They make things so easy for you. That's one of the great perks of being a Genesis driver. The convenience from start to finish. You can start your shopping process online. Every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. If you see something you like, would like to test drive it, you can go to the dealership. They'd love to have you. It's a great facility and the staff's awesome. If you don't want to go to the dealership, that's okay too. It's part of the convenience. They'll come to you. They'll drive the car right to your door, whether that's at work or at home. One of their brand ambassadors will hop in the car with you. You can go for a quick test drive, see that difference in driving that Genesis vehicle. And if you think, all right, this is the one for me, you don't have to go to the dealership at that point either. They do digital delivery. They can do some e-contracts. You never have to set foot on the dealership property to purchase a car. You don't even have to set foot on the dealership property to get the car maintenanced, and it's complimentary. They're going to send somebody to you with a vehicle. You can get your vehicle driven right back to the dealership. They'll handle your maintenance complimentary for 3 years, and they'll drive it right back to you when it's ready. It can't be any easier than that. It's just part of being a Genesis driver. When you think Genesis, think luxury. When you think luxury, don't just think, I can't afford that. Give them a shot.
With New Year's resolutions, many of us will make a vow to eat healthier, and that's a good thing. But what about our beloved pets and their nutrition? Greetings, I'm naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, and here at Meow Greens, we're on a mission to provide better nutrition for all cats because truthfully, all cat food is dead food, which is why we created Meow Greens in the first place. We bring their dead food back to life with live vitamins, minerals, probiotics, enzymes, omega oils, antioxidants, and so much more. All with a tasty formula that your cat will love. You can improve your cat's coat, digestion, and energy, and have less vet bills. Let 2025 bring a new year and a new pet. Get a Jumpstart trial bag, normally $20. Get a 100% discount with promo code MEOW. You just cover the shipping. Bring your pet's food back to life. Get your free Jumpstart trial bag. Go to meowgreens.com. Use promo code MEOW. MEOW. So good your cat will ask for it by name.
You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. Obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors, but they take time and energy, pulling you away from building and shipping. That's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups get audit-ready and build a strong security foundation, quickly and painlessly. Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. The platform connects you with trusted experts to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. So whether you're closing your first deal or gearing up for growth, Vanta makes compliance easy. Join over 8,000 companies, including Y Combinator and Techstar startups who trust Vanta. For a limited time, get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/simplify. That's VANTA.com/simplify for $1,000 off.
It's luxury experience at a reasonable price. It's Genesis, and you can find it right here in our capital city at Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Hope you're safe out there. Hope you're warming up out there. I was encouraged driving in on Nicholson from my house to work today. You couldn't really tell anything had happened on Nicholson. Now, off to the sides, obviously, there's snow on the ground, but the road itself was completely normal. So if you kind of been a little stir crazy, looking to maybe get out of the house, I'm not telling you to leave the house, but I'm suggesting that there may be an opportunity for you to do so this afternoon, as we've got temps that are pushing 50 degrees, and the roads are looking a lot better, certainly, than they did yesterday. And of course, Tuesday was a complete non-starter as far as traveling goes. So getting back to normal here, as we got temps like pushing 60 this weekend. So our fun in the snow is just about over, and get back to some semblance of a work week. Had the holiday for most on Monday, and then a couple days of snow. Now back in action here for us, at least on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Fox Sports, bit of a clickbait thing here, but I clicked it. Top 10 college football teams since 2000. And I'll just start to tick them off. You know that LSU's got 3 national championship teams over this time, so do they check in on this list? I didn't anticipate 2007 would. You look at a team that loses 2 games, they're probably not going to get the benefit of the doubt. I thought that team was really, really good. They got hurt significantly over the course of a season, and they lost 2 games to Kentucky and Arkansas, which is a pretty easy disqualifier if you're talking about all-time teams. But here's what Fox had to say, and I'll kind of give my 2 cents on it. I'll kind of run through it rather quickly. Number 10, you got the 2008 Florida Gators. That's, of course, Tim Tebow's a team that he piloted. The 06 team, Chris Leak was the quarterback. Tebow was there in 2010. It was Jeff Demps and Chris Rady and Percy Harvin and Aaron Hernandez and Riley Cooper. And Riley, is that right? There were 2 Riley Coopers. Riley Cooper from Florida and the LSU baseball one. I said the Florida one, and then my head went to the hefty lefty on the baseball team. Same name. That's okay. That team was awesome. Brandon Spikes, phenomenal on defense. Like, they were really, really, really good. And so I have no issue with them being in the top 10. The 2018 Clemson team checks in here at number 9. That's the one that just throttled Alabama out in Santa Clara. Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback. Travis Etienne was the running back, the ACC's all-time touchdown scorer. Dexter Lawrence and Christian Wilkins were first-round picks on the defensive line. A.J. Terrell was a first-round pick eventually. They beat Notre Dame 30-3 and then beat Alabama 44-16. So you're talking about a 74-19 run in the 2 playoff games. That's a really, really good Clemson team. So to put them at number 9, I was good with. 2023 Michigan at number 8. They didn't really throw the ball, but their defense was awesome, and they ran the ball really well. McCarthy kind of did what he had to do. I don't know if I'm immediately going to put him up there, even though that defense was legit. There's no doubt. I feel like some of those other teams I might take because they're dynamic playmakers on offense. In 2000, number 7 on this list, they kind of cheated and slammed 2 teams together here. They put the 11 and 12 Alabama Crimson Tide. Those are the 2 McCarran teams. They both won national championships. One broke LSU's heart. The other one crushed Notre Dame. That offensive line is the best offensive line I've ever seen. It had Chance Warmick and DJ Fluker and Cyrus Quandro and Barrett Jones, and they were really good on defense as well. Talking about some all-time Alabama players on those defenses with Eddie Lacy and Trent Richardson running the football. Really good teams. So to put them at 7, I'm good with that. It's the 11 defense for Alabama was absolutely as good as LSU's 11 defense, which is one of the best in the history of the sport for my money. LSU couldn't score a touchdown in 8 quarters on them. So figure that's a pretty quality team. At 6, you got 2020 Alabama. That's going to be one of the toughest teams to ever classify in the history of college football because they were really good, but they played the COVID year, and so it was weird. They didn't play true road games. Teams were playing without players, quarantine and contact tracing, whatever. They're a good team. They're the Heisman Trophy winner. I'm okay with Alabama at number 6, even though in 2020, I think that's just a weird year. Number 5, the 2019 LSU Tigers at number 5 on this list. Not all time. The last 25 years, they've got this LSU team at number 5. I just have a hard time with that, quite frankly. I could try to make the case, and they said the 2019 LSU team had arguably the best offense in college football history. They talk about Burrow, Chase, Jefferson, Clyde, all that. They said that they, in the regular season, LSU broke its 8-game losing streak to Alabama, later had their way with Georgia in the SEC championship game, 37-10, dismantled Oklahoma 63-28, and then beat Clemson 42-25 in the title game. They don't try to make an argument as to why LSU wouldn't be higher. And I feel like that would be necessary when talking about this team, because I don't know anybody that's got LSU in that 2019 team at 5th. Not all time, not the last 25 years. You want to start tossing that Nebraska team in there, okay. You want to start talking about Miami teams, okay. But 5th of the last 25 years, that's pretty bold. So what's ahead of that team? They've got 2021 and 22, the back-to-back champs from Georgia. That's Stetson Bennett's team with all those first-rounders and high picks on defense. Okay, I just don't think so. Sorry. One of those teams lost a game. They lost to Bama in the SEC championship game. So that's a detractor. And if you want to fight this fight with Joe Burrow against Stetson Bennett, I'll play and I'll take Joe. Great Georgia defense. Great. And solid on the offense as well. That's a tough sell for me. Better than LSU. 2005 Texas, that's Vince Young's team. Had Jamal Charles. That's pretty athletic 1-2 punch in the backfield there. But again, I just don't know if I'm going to go ahead and put Texas's 05 team in front of LSU in 2019. Yeah, the team that they beat in the national championship game, that USC team with Reggie Bush, was really, really good. But I just don't know if you look at what LSU had on the field on offense and defense. You look at what those guys did on the field, dismantling Alabama, dismantling Georgia, dismantling Clemson, dismantling Oklahoma, never trailing in the fourth quarter, never having to make those big-time clutch plays. That's tough for me. Vince Young's really good, but LSU just feels like they're deeper and more talented. Then number 2 is USC in 03 and 04. That's Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush and Lindell White, and the ridiculous run that Pete Carroll had there. Mike Williams was a receiver on that team. It was a great run, and those teams were excellent, and I feel like they deserve to get a ton of credit. And I feel like you can debate that team with LSU, and then as you would probably guess, 2001 Miami comes in here at number 1. You can put LSU in that discussion for this list with 0-3-4 to the Trojans and the 2001 Miami team. I'm just not going to get on board here with you with the 2 Georgia back-to-back teams and Texas being better than LSU. I think the point of that is to get people like me to be cranky and to bring it up and to send it to people and to click on it. I understand the world of needing clicks. That's all well and good. That sometimes pays the bills. Programmatic advertisers like the fact that you're getting a lot of clicks. That's just a bridge too far in my estimation. Yeah, Georgia beat TCU 65-7 in the national championship game. Awesome. They also got taken right to the wire by Ohio State in a 42-41 game in the game before that. I can't get on board with it. I'm sorry. It's a fun exercise. No one can be right or wrong. But when you look at the fact that LSU has the 2 unanimous all-pro wide receivers and the NFL's passing yardage leader 4 or 5 years later that were on that team that were doing amazing things. I mean, y'all know the LSU team in 2019. I'm not here to rant and rave and yell and scream about this list that Fox Sports put together. I do understand that Fox has the television contract rights with the Big Ten and that USC is in the Big Ten. And that Miami's not in the SEC. So you could try to convince me that this is some sort of backhanded slap at the SEC because we control this conference and not yours, so we'll go give the nod to our conference now. I don't really care to have that discussion, but any list to me that's going to put the 2019 LSU Tigers, as dominant as they were, as star-studded as they were, as many decorations as they took home, and what those guys have done in the NFL, and you want to ditch them back to 5th for Stetson Bennett, I'm going to probably bristle at that just a touch. I just don't think that's correct. I'd like to chat with the person who made the list. Nobody's name's on it. So I guess it'll live in anonymity. Maybe it's Joel Klatt. Maybe it's somebody else typing over there at the Fox offices. But I will choose to politely disagree and move on from the conversation because I just don't think it's. I don't think they did a perfect job here. We'll just put it at that. We got one segment to go. Come back with us to close out a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. Have you ever gone online and given your insurance broker a 5-star review?
With New Year's resolutions, many of us will make a vow to eat healthier, and that's a good thing. But what about our beloved pets and their nutrition? Greetings, I'm naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, and here at Meow Greens, we're on a mission to provide better nutrition for all cats because truthfully, all cat food is dead food, which is why we created Meow Greens in the first place. We bring their dead food back to life with live vitamins, minerals, probiotics, enzymes, omega oils, antioxidants, and so much more. All with a tasty formula that your cat will love. You can improve your cat's coat, digestion, and energy, and have less vet bills. Let 2025 bring a new year and a new pet. Get a Jumpstart trial bag, normally $20. Get a 100% discount with promo code MEOW. You just cover the shipping. Bring your pet's food back to life. Get your free Jumpstart trial bag. Go to meowgreens.com. Use promo code MEOW, MEOW. So good your cat will ask for it by name.
It's just not something we do a lot of. A lot of folks don't love the interactions they have with insurance brokers because they feel like those premiums keep climbing and there's nothing they can do about it. I doubt the first thing you're going to do is go on to Google and say how awesome a job your insurance broker's doing. That actually happens quite a bit with the Highland Insurance Group. They've got over 100 reviews for how great their customer service is. They're people, they're local, and they're here to help. They want to be a trusted part of your team. You trust your CPA, you trust your attorney, especially when things don't go great. That's kind of the nature of things in the insurance business as well. You want to be able to trust your insurance broker when things eventually go south, whether that's a car accident, lawsuit, cyber breach, hurricane, whatever the case may be. You need to be able to trust your insurance broker, and you can if you work with Jonathan Carbo and his team at the Highland Insurance Group. They're online at HighlandIG.com. They're right here in Baton Rouge. If you're a business owner, you'd like to make some changes to your insurance program this year, Highland Insurance Group needs to be the first contact that you make. Check them out online, HighlandIG.com, HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
It's Conference Championship Sunday in the NFL. First, the Eagles host Jaden Daniels and the Commanders for the NFC title at 2 p.m. And then the Kansas City Chiefs will host the Bills in their classic rivalry for the AFC Championship at 5:30. Your home for the NFL playoffs and Super Bowl 59 is 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. And we've also got the Pels for you coming up tomorrow night. They will go on the road at 7 p.m. against the Memphis Grizzlies. And then Saturday at 6 we'll take on the Charlotte Hornets, and Monday, 6:30, the Toronto Raptors. Your home for the New Orleans Pelicans is 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The Red Hot Pels, is that what you called them?
They I didn't say that, but they are red hot.
But you maybe should have?
Yeah, probably should have, honestly.
What a team.
I mean, look, if they just win like 20 games in a row, they'll be back into the play-in.
Wow.
That's all they got to do.
I think I've liked their chances. Great
I do
team.
too. Yeah.
Amazingly well constructed, never hurt.
Well, honestly, Hunt, they were pretty well constructed, I think. Problem wasn't the construction of the
debatable.
Team. We're seeing it right now. The team win pretty healthy.
Week?
They're playing pretty well with their players that aren't hurt.
I'm not here to dump on the Pels. The Pels have had a tough go of it, so I'm thrilled they're playing great, even if it costs them a high draft pick. But maybe they can trade some of the players that are playing great.
Maybe so.
Reconstruct some things.
How about that?
Could be. Breaking news that everyone's going to be really locked in on here. Myers Daycare is open tomorrow. Let's go.
Wow.
We like that.
Alrighty.
Get him out of here. Kid needs to get
what
off the couch.
What happened today, by the way?
Alyssa clinic was closed for her, so she
okay.
was able to
All
do
right.
some home. I stayed at home until about 11. I got my stuff done. He's pretty content to sit on the couch and watch TV.
I can imagine.
He needs to get out of the house and do something.
Yes.
That needs to happen pretty quickly. So hopefully she can get him out on the bike or something this afternoon. But the snow spooked him. He was not keen on going out there. It's cold.
That's
and,
unfortunate, man. It really. I mean, maybe in a year or two, if it would have happened,
I think a year later he'd have been all. But maybe if we had some some gloves. But we're just not prepared. We don't own the stuff. It is what it is. He was out there in sweatpants. I was out there in sweatpants. We just didn't do a great job. I texted Alyssa Monday. I was like, do we need to get him gloves? She's like, we're not going to buy gloves for one snow. Maybe that was the right call. Maybe it wasn't the right call. I don't know. I don't even know where you buy gloves. I have no idea.
You can get gloves at any place you buy clothes for a kid, I think.
Like snow gloves?
Well, maybe not snow gloves. You maybe have to go to
I mean, I know multiple people that had like rubber gloves from the kitchen they put on the kids and then do like the wool gloves over them so they got wet and the hands didn't get wet. Whatever. I saw one of my friends put his kid in basically Ziploc bags that were like zip tied around the hands. That was his 5-year-old daughter. So, I mean, we just didn't do much of that. Once he was spooked, it just wasn't a lot of outside time for the Palmers. He needs to get outside and do something. That needs to happen. So glad he can go to daycare tomorrow. Back to work.
Good.
All right, we got to take it or leave it?
We do.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
All right, first one here. The Baseball Writers Association of America announced the results of the 2025 Hall of Fame voting. Ichiro, along with CC Sabathia, and Billy Wagner actually got in on his last year of eligibility. All got in with the 75% required. Ichiro, however, one vote short of being a unanimous selection. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave it. It's a weird flex by one Hall of Fame guy. I don't know who it is, if that vote's going to come out or whatnot, but if there's a weird flex from those Hall of Fame guys that don't want people in unanimously. It is a flawed way of thinking to think that you need to be important enough to be the vote that distinguishes Ichiro from Babe Ruth. Well, Babe Ruth wasn't unanimous, so Bob Gibson wasn't unanimous. I can't put Ichiro. That's just, you're either a Hall of Famer or you're not, and that's really poorly done by whoever it was. Ichiro led the league in hits like 7 times. Was a lifetime 308 hitter. It was led the league in steals once. Was an MVP. He won like 9 Gold Gloves. He's one of the best contact hitters in the history of baseball. And who knows what his numbers would have looked like if he played the first 7 years in America instead of in Japan. He maybe could have threatened Pete Rose. I don't know. But it's just such self-important thinking.
Yeah.
I think I need to be the one guy that takes Ichiro from being unanimous. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and also it's just still so funny because they, for some reason, decided that look, I'm not going to besmirch the name of Mariano Rivera, but he might be the greatest closer of all time. But still, you decide to make him unanimous, but you've got all these other guys, especially with Ichiro happening this year, where you can't make him unanimous. It makes no sense to me. It's really stupid. And we'll move on to another thing that is pretty stupid, in my opinion. Andrew Jones, again, fell short of the 75% of votes necessary to be elected. He only has 2 years left of eligibility. Jones will get in the next 2 years. Take it or leave it.
I didn't see how far he got this year.
He got 66 or 68, I think.
He'll get there.
I'll take it.
I know he's got like 10 Gold Gloves, and I think he hit 350 home runs or 400 home runs.
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, he hit a lot of home runs, and he won a lot of Gold Gloves. He was one of the best players in the major leagues for almost a decade. He absolutely, in my opinion, is a my computer's dead, by the way. So,
yeah, he had 434 home runs.
I mean, 434 home runs and 10 Gold Gloves. In one of the most challenging defensive positions in Major League Baseball. He's the best defensive center fielder in the sport for a decade, and he hit more than 430 home runs. I don't know what we're looking at here. Are we trying to pin PEDs on the guy because of when he played? I can't figure that out, but that's well beyond the marks you need to be a Hall of Famer, and it's laughable again that he's not in. I can't come up with anything on that.
All right, last one real quick. The Bengals have hired Notre Dame defensive coordinator Al Golden to take over for Lou Anarumo. The Bengals defense will be better. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
They probably need to focus some free agent money on that. I don't know what the cap situation is. I do know that Jamar Chase's cap situation is about to get a lot worse. So I hope it's better. I hope that Al Golden is great. But Lou Anarumo was thought of as great 2 years ago. and not now because you let Jesse Bates walk because of money, and it's just hard to stay that good. So you hope Hendrickson's got some more years of good football in him and go find somebody else that can play on the defensive side in free agency. We'll see. Huge Bengals fan. Really more of a Commanders fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might need to switch. Not a switch allegiance, but I think they're your top team now.
Matt's going to drive you home on AFR. We're back tomorrow with the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.